History remembers the thunder. The great clashes, the names etched in stone, the turning points we study and debate. Lindisfarne, 793 AD. The year the fury of the Northmen, the Vikings, truly crashed upon England's shores, sending shockwaves across Christendom. A date burned into memory. But what if that wasn't the beginning? What if the storm gathered long before the lightning strike everyone recalls? What if the first tremor, the initial, chilling contact, has been largely overshadowed, lost in the echo of later, larger horrors? Travel back with us, not to 793, but earlier. To the year 787. The Kingdom of Wessex, in the south of what would one day be called England. A land ruled by Anglo-Saxon kings, a society finding its feet, building its churches, writing its laws. The sea was a highway, a source of sustenance, sometimes a mystery, but not yet a source of existential dread. Trade routes crisscrossed the waters. Ships came and went. Familiar rhythms governed the coastal settlements. Imagine a day like any other on the Dorset coast, perhaps near the Isle of Portland. The air smells of salt and seaweed. Fishermen mend their nets. Farmers work the fields sloping down towards the water. Life follows its accustomed pace under the watchful eye of the king's representative, the reeve. His duty: to maintain order, collect tolls, and ensure the king's peace is kept. Then, something unfamiliar appears on the horizon. 3 ships. Not the usual merchant cogs or fishing vessels known to these waters. These are different. Long, sleek, with a shallow draft allowing them to navigate close to shore, closer than seems prudent. A strange design, perhaps a dragon's head carved menacingly on the prow, cutting through the waves with unnerving speed. Who are they? Merchants from Francia. Frisian traders. Curiosity ripples through the onlookers. There's no immediate sense of alarm. Strangers arrive by sea, it's not unheard of. Perhaps they seek provisions, or maybe they've lost their way. The king's reeve, a man named Pedersen residing in nearby Dorchester, is informed. Duty calls. These newcomers must state their business, pay their dues if they intend to trade. It is the law, the custom. He gathers a small retinue, perhaps armed lightly, more for authority than for battle. He rides towards the shore where the strange ships have now beached, their crews disembarking. Picture the scene. The reeve, representing the established order of Wessex, approaches these unknown men. Tall, fair-haired, clad in unfamiliar garb, bearing weapons perhaps, but weapons were common. He likely calls out, demanding to know who they are, where they come from, and insists they accompany him to the royal estate, the proper place to handle official matters. He expects compliance. He represents the king. He is the law in this small corner of the kingdom. But these are not merchants. They are not lost fishermen. They are Atlaga, outlaws, wolves from the sea, men from the harsh north seeking plunder, not permission. They answer the reeve's demands not with words of trade or taxes, but with sudden, shocking violence. There's a blur of movement. The glint of steel in the sunlight. A cry cut short. The reeve, Pedersen, the king's man, falls. His retinue, likely stunned and outnumbered, are swiftly overcome. It's brutal, efficient, and utterly unexpected. The king's peace is shattered in an instant. Chaos erupts. The strangers, these Northmen, these Vikings, don't linger. They haven't come to conquer or negotiate. They move quickly into the nearest settlements. Doors are kicked in. Villagers scatter in terror. There are screams, the clash of weapons against simple farming tools or desperate hands. They seize whatever valuables they can find, silver, perhaps some precious cloth, food, maybe even a few unfortunate souls dragged back towards the ships as slaves. And then, as quickly as they appeared, they are gone. The longships push off from the shore, their sails catching the wind, vanishing back over the horizon, leaving behind bewildered survivors, the bodies of the slain, including the king's own reeve, and the smoldering embers of looted homes. Word spreads. Slowly at first, then with growing alarm. An attack. Not by rival kingdoms, not by familiar foes, but by unknown assailants from the sea. Men who killed the royal official simply for doing his duty. Men who took what they wanted and disappeared. This wasn't Lindisfarne. It lacked the symbolic sacrilege of desecrating a holy site. It was smaller in scale. But its significance is profound and chilling. It was the first recorded instance. The Anglo-Saxon Chronicle, that invaluable record of the era, notes it starkly. This year King Bertric took Edburga the daughter of Offa to wife. And in his days came first 3 ships of Northmen out of Hordaland. And then the reeve rode to the place, and would have driven them to the king's town, because he knew not who they were. And they there slew him. These were the first ships of Danish men which sought the land of the English nation. They didn't even know who they were. The chronicler struggles, calling them Northmen, Danish men. The term Viking wasn't yet the common identifier for these sea raiders. Wessex, and indeed all of Anglo-Saxon England, was utterly unprepared. Their defenses faced landward, against other kingdoms. Their concept of threat didn't encompass swift, brutal raids from the sea by complete unknowns who struck without warning and vanished without a trace. This incident at Portland in 787 was a prelude. A terrifying whisper of the hurricane to come. It exposed a vulnerability the Anglo-Saxons hadn't perceived. While Lindisfarne 6 years later would scream the danger to the heavens, this earlier, bloodier encounter was the first, sharp intake of breath before the cry. The death of Bede you heard wasn't just the death of one man, it was the death of an illusion, the illusion of coastal security, the illusion that the sea was merely a passage, not a potential avenue of invasion. The shock must have been immense. The questions must have flown. Who were these people? Where did they come from? Would they return? The answers would come soon enough. Over the following decades, the trickle would become a flood. The isolated raids would escalate into larger invasions, protracted wars, the establishment of the Danelaw, and centuries of struggle that would reshape the destiny of England. But it began here. Not with the sacking of a famous monastery, but with 3 strange ships appearing off the Dorset coast, a fatal misunderstanding by a diligent official, and a brutal awakening for a kingdom that had unknowingly tasted the first bitter draught of the Viking Age. A forgotten harbinger of the storm.